Look at this grin. Look at this face. Look at this face. This, I know.
Trouble.
Trouble when I see it, and this is trouble.
That's the agent. Oh, how do we...
Welcome to our farm. Guys, we bought Olive Farm.
Yeah, what do you think of our farm?
Okay, we didn't buy an Olive Farm.
But this is the farm that started it all.
If you didn't see our previous video, we're back in Puglia from Sicily after spending about 5 weeks there, and we nosing around Puglia in Italy, looking at some rural properties, some not so rural properties. If nothing comes from this, at least we've learned a lot of lessons. At the end of this video, we'll sort of share our thoughts. The place we're at the moment is where we left Millie, our camper van, 2 years ago while we were going to South Africa for 3 months, and they actually started a project exactly like some of the things we're looking at. So it's 2 years later and they're still busy and they are far from done. And I'm sad to say that's one of my concerns with these kind of projects, but I'll show you around here later. And this morning
We are going to see 2 rural properties, which we're very excited about. Depending on what we see today, it's going to decide a lot of things.
Yeah, so thanks for all the comments we've received so far in our previous video. You know, it's interesting because a lot of the thinking that comes out of the comments is stuff we've been bouncing with back and forth. We're constantly wondering whether we're second guessing ourselves, whether we're doing the right thing. Wow, what are we doing, man? Just go to Australia or North America or South America and buy a camper and travel. What are you guys doing?
Which are all things that we do still also want to do. And that just makes it so much more complicated and difficult to actually make a decision. And then on top of that, we've also got another big trip coming up too.
Yes, we'll share a little bit later about that trip in this video as well. But
so make sure that you are subscribed. And if you're enjoying these videos, remember to give us a big fat thumbs up. And let's go property hunting. Come on, let's go.
Like already. We haven't even showed the video.
Like it.
Okay, let's go and look at some property. Hello and welcome to our channel. We're Andre and Lisa. We've been traveling together as a couple for 20 years, exploring more than 50 countries. Since 2018, we've embraced a full-time nomadic lifestyle, aiming to make travel a sustainable and long-term way of life. For the past 4 years, we've been winding our way around Europe with our 22-year-old motorhome, Millie. This year, after enjoying new destinations such as Morocco and Sardinia, and returning to some old favorites, we're extending our summer in sunny Sicily before we head off to escape winter. So hit that subscribe button and join us on our adventure. Good morning. Welcome back to Millie. Okay, let me just come sit next to you for 1 second. We had a very interesting day yesterday. It actually got completely out of hand. Well, we only ended up seeing 2 properties, of which we'll show you those in a moment. 2 completely different properties. We're going to have breakfast now, and we've got one more property we're going to see later today.
Very, very exciting.
Very stressful.
I don't know, this is getting exhausting to be honest.
Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't want to say anything.
Nothing.
I just want to eat and go view property.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Breakfast done and dusted. Let me show you around this place quickly. Now, this place, friend of ours place, they bought about 2.5 years ago, and we stayed here about 2 years ago, left our van here, and that's sort of where we got the inspiration for looking for property in this area. And they went this whole buy a little agricultural area with a building, but it's turned out to be quite a project. And we're very grateful for them that we are able to learn a lot of lessons via them and not firsthand. Let me show you around here quickly. So when they got this property, it had this single agricultural building on it. Now this was 2 years ago. The planning process for the renovation expansion has taken a long time because there was no water and there was no electricity. So they had to put a well in. which ended up having to go down to 100 meters and costing them 8,000 euros. The additional problem was that before they could put the well point in, they had to get electricity here. And this whole process is now still ongoing. Anyway, so have a look at this project. This is a very common structure in Puglia. These flat stone brick buildings, normally with access to the roof, and most of these have star vault ceilings. Now generally, if you operate within the existing footprint of the building, you're allowed to expand sometimes up to 30%, but that's not guaranteed. In this case, there was a little extension in the back, and they had it approved to put new foundations in and rebuild it. Show you what it looks like inside quickly. Now you have to imagine that this wall was closed, and this was actually the entirety of the structure. So very typical, these dome roofs. Now what they had approved was to go through this wall. Look at the thickness of this wall. Incredible. This is probably 1.2 meters. And this used to be a storeroom. It was now rebuilt, which will be configured into a new bathroom. And this will be like a studio style apartment. Super small, probably end up with about 40 odd square meters. Crazy part is that the structural work, including the plans and approval and the building of the superstructure, is upwards of 20,000 euros so far. We got an interesting package delivered this morning, and this is for our next trip, but you'll have to wait until the next video for this one. Now we've been talking about this trip we're going on, and this something you might all be familiar with. Yes, we're going overseas and we're going for a while. Cell phone and data is a challenge. This is why we're super happy for this week's video to be sponsored by our friends Saily.
Saily is a new eSIM service app which allows you to choose affordable eSIM plans throughout 160 countries across 8 regions. One of the best things about Saily is that you only need to download the app and install an eSIM once, and not for every country that you visit. Once you've chosen from one of their many country-specific, regional, or even global plans, that's it, you're set to go. This means you can arrive at a new destination and immediately be connected, without having to wait in long lines at the airport to buy an overpriced local SIM. This way, you know you won't be caught out by some SIM scam, and you don't even need to connect to any public Wi-Fi. All you need to do is download the app by either scanning this QR code or using the link in the description below. The app is compatible with both iOS and Android, but you'll have to make sure that your phone is compatible with eSIM technology. Choose a plan that suits you, and remember to apply our exclusive coupon code, Andre and Lisa, at checkout to receive a 15% discount. Simply install and activate your eSIM, and that's it, you're ready to go. We're really looking forward to this trip, and it's great to know that we're going to arrive connected, thanks to Saily.
Okay, we're back. So let's quickly talk about the properties we saw yesterday. Now, if you've seen our last video, we show you 3 places, eh?
4
places. All of them with some pros and cons. If you can hear the hammering in the background, I don't know what it is. They're drilling somewhere, so sorry about that.
Or olive shaking, we're not too sure.
We went to see 2 very different places yesterday. One, a house that's almost ready to move in. The second property is a larger agricultural property with a project house.
And this one we expected to be very, very tempting, but the realities of it have made it a lot less appealing.
Okay, so let's quickly talk about these 2. The first one's called Loft House. They marketed it for 85,000 euros. It's a really good price. In fact, it's actually under its what's called cadastral value, which is like its replacement value on the municipal books. And that's good and bad. The property's been on the market for a while. That's good and bad.
It does give you good bargaining power in terms of putting in a low offer. We feel that 70,000 should be accepted, but it also means that you won't necessarily be able to sell that property very quickly or at all.
The property is located like in a small cluster of other properties.
Agricultural properties.
What was sort of agricultural, it's been rezoned, and I think that is to its downside because there's not real proper road to it, although it's very close to a good tar road, but not close enough for it to be a bother.
And it feels a little bit isolated from the actual beach village or town area. For us, it's quite nice that it's removed because it's still within 1 kilometer, so walking distance to the beaches, which are absolutely stunning in that area.
I think the problem is that we sort of see it as a large space we can make our own. It's got like 5 rooms, massive lounge, kitchen we have to revamp, bathroom we have to revamp. But it's one of those places where you can park the van, you have all the space you want and need. You can have a gym, you can have a study, you can have a workshop, you can have everything. So there's storage in the roof, everything's there. It's great value.
What I like about the space also is that it's a fairly blank canvas. It's got plain grey tiles, it'll need a coat of paint. You can move in there tomorrow and it can work, but then there's still some place for improvement and some reno projects that we would love to do to this property.
What holding us back a little bit is there's no municipal water supply. It hasn't got a well of its own at the moment. There's some questions around what's installed as a septic tank. So, and also we have to figure out how we're going to make it a cozy place. It's quite a big, cold house. It has got no heating in it, and unfortunately the living spaces is away from the winter sun. So it's all these little bit challenges is holding us back just a little bit.
The things that do make it very attractive for us is that it's a very easy and practical lock up and go home. It's got steel shutters, so that's fantastic. It's also very well located for us in the sense of locality to the beach, but also surrounded by vineyards.
Yeah, it's nice.
There's one live-in neighbor next door to you, which is a good thing. And they've already upgraded their property, which could mean beneficial property values in the future.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, but we just don't know. This one we
Very
keep sort of
tricky.
in our back pocket at the moment. We just don't know. I think let's move on to the second one. This is completely the opposite. It's a real project. We didn't expect it to be as big a project as it seemed to be. We call it 65 because
Pretty olive trees.
it's marketed at 65,000 euros. It's got a fairly large olive grove, about 7,000 square meters, a pretty big footprint of a property that's
70 square meters plus a veranda.
the original property was quite old, but they've added a piece, I guess, and now the project's seemingly approved to complete it. So, but
We thought that was going to be a good thing because the project's just been approved, which means you've got some time to get it going. But you need to start official construction with a contractor within 1 year of project approval.
and you have to complete it quite quickly. Now, it's not quick. Nothing happens quick. You can build for years and not get done. Ask our friends here. Although I think there's a lot of potential, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Not only that, there's currently not water on the property, so we need to install a well. So we
electricity.
can't, or electricity, so we can't even go and really just park Millie there and say that we've got the services and hold on with the building.
Not that I would want to.
The other thing with the building is that we knew it was in a rustic state, but we didn't expect the condition of the roof to be so bad. So you need
Yes.
to replace the roof immediately.
Unfortunately, the old section is completely, the concrete's bursting open. There's some corrosion, steel, and it's just completely toast.
So as appealing as this project is from a dreamy perspective, you look at it, you've got a stunning, stunning setting. I think it's a very functional, usable space.
Although close to the ocean, it's not close to a beach. So that
Yes.
already, unfortunately, ticked a few negatives for us.
It is still a great opportunity, but it's going to take commitment of time, money,
Lots
and
of money.
a lot of effort.
Lot of
And
effort.
we're not sure that we're up for that right now. If we were going to be staying put for 18 months, then I think that would be a very interesting and fun project, although expensive.
We've spoken to some people. The estimate is that you have to spend another 200,000 euros to make it into a nice house. But we're going to go look at the last property that's on our list. This is also one of those, we saved it for last because this is the most intriguing one.
I've got my fingers crossed because, man, this is
could
going to
the
be an
one. This could be a
exciting
good
one.
So when we come back, we'll talk about our lessons and tips about our experience here in the south of Italy. Maybe you can take something away from it. Now, we're not going to hop on about property. This will be the last video on it. We are preparing ourselves to leave the van here for a few months and we are going on a trip.
Yes, and a different style of traveling at that.
Okay, are we going to go? Let's go.
Let's go.
Fingers crossed. Look at this grin. Look at this face. Look at this face. I know
Trouble.
trouble when I see it, and this is trouble. So what happened, Lisa?
Well, let's just say that I'm not sure how we're going to get what we want to get done in the number of days we have left, but
Okay, so we went to look at this last property, and as expected, it was intriguing and very
In a good way.
In a good way. It ticked almost all of our boxes. Had a few but suffice to say, location's good. It's rural, but not too rural. It's
interesting.
pretty good.
It's amazing.
It's pretty good. I don't want to. We're not going to show you too much about it, but this might. Look, we also learned, don't over invest yourself emotionally in these things, because in a day it can be snapped out from under you, your dreams can be crushed.
And don't expect anything to happen quickly in Italy specifically. So let's just see.
Wait. So this property, shall we show?
No,
Okay.
don't. It's too exciting and there's too many unknowns right now. So just cross fingers that we'll be able to tell you more soon.
Yeah, we'll definitely tell you. Maybe in the next video we'll have a little bit of an update on this one. So
Or we'll do a bonus.
no. Okay, so let's quickly talk about, I think before we wrap up, the few lessons, tips that
Yes.
we've learned. Anybody can buy property in Italy. Eh? You don't have to be a citizen, you not have to be a resident. There are pros and cons to both, and buying property doesn't give you any benefits in either of those options. But just so you know, you can come to Italy, you can buy property. No
From
problem.
most countries, yes. Let's just start right at the beginning. How do you start searching for properties?
Okay, top tip, don't. Save yourself the heartache.
The easiest is to have a look at two of the main websites, which is immobiliari.it and also Idealista. Now, both of these websites, you can look at them online. They also have an app. I found the apps really easy because you can save your searches, you can contact the agencies through the main website, and it's just an easy way to organize not only your favorites, your searches with different criteria, but also your communication with the agents.
Yeah, because it can get overwhelming. You start contacting people and suddenly get all these responses, and if you don't keep it in an organized way, it gets out of hand a bit, eh?
Because there are loads of properties available.
And there's no shortage of properties, so it very much depends on what you need. Now, the reason there's so much property...
Speaking of,
Okay.
that's the agent. How do we... Pronto?
Elisa?
Sì, Vittorio.
Te l'ho mandata.
Okay.
Allora, mettila tipo una avanti e una dietro.
Okay, well, that was the agent.
One of the first things we've learned is what you see is not necessarily what it is. So what I mean by that is a lot of properties have some irregularities, and there's a number of reasons for this. So you have to be prepared to ask a set of basic questions. You as a buyer doesn't necessarily have the same protection you might expect from the country you're from.
The other thing is that communication with the agents is not at all what I expected and not what I'm used to. I'm used to, if you contact an estate agent, gosh, if they've got your number, they're going to bug you. In Italy, it's completely different. When you send them a message by email or communication through the app, they take forever to respond to you. Once they've got your cell phone number, they love to call, and communication by WhatsApp is incredible. They respond very, very fast to that.
Once you have direct line of communication with the agent, it's much better, but it's mostly Italian. So the tip here is you might have to find a English-speaking property agent, and that's not a bad thing because there's a lot of minefields you have to navigate here.
Like you say, in terms of assistance and somebody being on your side to advise you as to what you should be asking, something like that, you definitely need somebody who knows about buying property in Italy.
So the funny thing is that the agent does not represent neither the seller or the buyer in Italy. It's like they have this weird middleman connection. In fact, the moment you have a signed agreement of sale, their job is done, they get paid and they walk away. And they don't represent either party per se. It's good and bad once again.
Most of them are very, very local. So not just regional, but they'll work within a very small area. So when you're looking in a big area like us, we're looking across Puglia, you end up dealing with tens of agents. So the agent's commission seems to be pretty standard across the board. You're not going to find anything for less than about 3%. And on properties less than 100,000 euro, we found that there's more or less a fixed agent's fee of 3,000 euro.
Interestingly, the agent's fee is also not just paid by the seller as you would expect, but it's paid by the buyer and the seller. So each of these parties actually pay the fee. So it's might be more beneficial to become an agent than to buy property in Italy.
And that, of course, excludes your IVA or VAT, which is 22%. That also adds on quite a lot to your agent's fee.
So different types of properties available. It gets quite interesting. Like this land we're standing at the moment isn't actually a singular patch of land. It's subdivided. Even though you own the whole property, there might be a portion that's absolutely dedicated to being an olive grove. The building stands there on the plot. And it's not like in some countries where you have building lines and maybe a restriction on height or maybe the surface area, and then you can pretty much do whatever you want. Here, you have to consider where those limits are on that specific patch.
And it's very crazy because what you're buying can be made up of various parcels. And like you say, sometimes the parcel is just the trullo, which is the rustic little building, and the land is another parcel. And it's just a very interesting. When it comes to the services of these lands, that what we've been looking at, even when it doesn't appear to be super rural. I mean, if you're actually looking at only agricultural land, you might expect this. But a lot of places appear to be built up areas, but they're not. So the services that exist are rural type services when it comes to water and sewerage.
In almost all cases, the moment you move outside the actual small town area, there's no municipal supplied water. There's no central sewage system.
The most common solution is to have a cistern which gets filled by a water tanker, and you just have it filled when you need more water.
Or using wells. Wells is all dotted all over part of this part of Italy anyway.
Let's talk about sewage.
Let's not talk about sewage. That's a whole topic of its own. Let's talk about the next point.
Sorry, just talk about the fact that
there's multiple options available. Traditionally, they use some sort of a soakaway system, and if treated well, that's very good and sustainable. More modern systems, especially in more developed areas, require like enclosed or sealed units.
Septic tank, which gets tanked.
What gets pumped out regularly, and obviously if you're in an urban area, there might be a centralized connection to a proper sewage system, which is probably a bonus. So these are just things you have to keep in the back of your mind. This is like different types of challenges. I think the average buyer from like we're used to an urban setting is just not used to.
The other thing is that the process of purchasing, like most bureaucratic things in Italy, is quite complicated. You have 3 steps. The first one is when you make a proposal, which is a signed document. If your proposal is accepted, you and the owner enter, or you as the buyer and the owner enter into a compromessa, which is like a pre-agreement.
It's like, no, the compromessa is the purchase to sale, the agreement of purchase to sale.
That's actually the agreement, the first level of agreement between you and the seller. And then only after that, it goes to the notaio, which is the notary. And at that point, the sale is concluded. So there are 3 definite steps.
But it's not that complicated if you have a good agent that represents you. They'll charge you a fee for the service, but
well worth your money.
It's well worth your money for sure. The biggest part is, after a while now, it's been more difficult than anticipated. You think you have all these options available, but once you start cutting them down and really looking at them, then you realize there's some major problems and some major challenges to overcome.
This is the thing. You look and you see so many initially and you think there's such incredible options. But if you have your list of shortlisted questions, whether the building must have approved plans, whether you want certain services, you can very quickly eliminate a large number, which is a good thing because it brings your search down, but it's also a bad thing because you can just so quickly knock out options which you thought were going to be great options.
If you have some local friends, it helps a lot. So we're very grateful to have some local connections, and Lisa speaking Italian also helps a lot. So, but anyway, I think this is not the end of the property hunt. We'll keep you filled in on what's happening with this last one, and until then, we'll be preparing the van for departure next week. So hopefully you enjoyed this as much as we did.
Well, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that this has been keeping our minds so busy and off what's actually to come.
Hopefully you'll subscribe and smash the like button, and we'll see you next time in Italy.
Thanks for watching.
Arrivederci.